Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So the Wave 4 tracks of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass are here as we enter the back half of this DLC. And not only is Nintendo treating us with some cool tracks, we also have a new character dropping with this set of new courses in Birdo, which was a cool and welcome surprise. What was even more surprising is that there are 5 more slots for characters now in the menu, which means we have 5 more attempts to get my man Funky Kong the respect he deserves. But back to the tracks. This wave of courses actually surprised me and ended up being possibly my favorite wave of tracks yet. So now, of course, we have to rank them from worst to best. In my opinion, anyways. So with that, let's go! Starting things off at number 8, we have Mario Circuit from Mario Kart DS. It's your pretty standard circuit track from Mario Kart that'll have you drive around a basic track that doesn't have too much flair, yet it's still a fun time to navigate. You of course have Princess Peach's castle in the background while dodging fireballs being spit at you by piranha plants, until you eventually make your way into a little wooded section where a sleeping Wiggler will wake up and start stomping around on the final lap. Plus you have that bop of a song going on in the background giving me all of that beautiful Mario Kart DS nostalgia. I always feel like when I rank something at the bottom of a list, the assumption is I'm not a fan of this track or I don't think it's very good, but that's not the case here at all. Just compared to the rest of the tracks we're going to talk about, this one takes the bottom spot. Moving on to number 7, we have Riverside Park, which was originally on the Game Boy Advance in Mario Kart Super Circuit. Now as always, I love seeing how these Game Boy Advance tracks transfer over, since there are a lot more creative decisions that can be made to make the remake of this track something of its own. And while this track is a good time, there isn't a ton here. You drift around this park, weaving around piranha plants that'll be blowing items above them, and if you bonk them or hit them with an item, the item they had will fly onto the course, whether it be a mushroom or a banana. Once you get towards the end of the course, you'll fly through a waterfall and do it all again. It's simple yet fun, but that only gets Riverside Park a notch above the bottom. Now at number 6, we have Bangkok Rush from Mario Kart Tour. Now I think in the last wave of tracks, I was starting to get a little fatigued with the Mario Kart Tour tracks personally, but the few in this wave have definitely reversed that feeling for me as I've had a lot of fun with these. You start off Bangkok Rush driving through a canal, doing tricks off of boats, and before you know it, you're drifting through a bazaar. After that, you can take a set of stairs up and take a shortcut through a train stop, or just stick to the streets. Not to mention the sections where you're weaving around a building in the air or bouncing on top of tents. There feels like there's a lot more variety in how you can approach this course. Ultimately though, I put 5 other tracks ahead of this one despite having a good time with it. Coming in at number 5, we have the second Mario Kart Tour track from this wave, and that's Amsterdam Drift. Again, in my opinion, a very refreshing Mario Kart Tour track being added to the mix compared to the couple we got in the last wave, and I think the reason I enjoyed this one was the variety that each lap brought. On the first lap, you'll be flying over a train and into a section with giant windmills before drifting around this section trying to avoid getting bonked by the Monty Moles burrowing on the course. Then the main draw of the second lap is navigating a section that is mostly underwater where you'll have the opportunity to do some tricks off of grates that'll propel you out of the water for a brief moment. And then it'll all come together in the final lap that'll have you drifting through a giant garden of tulips. Again, maybe it's just that every lap felt like it had its own feeling and identity, but for me, I had a pretty good time with Amsterdam Drift. Now at number 4, we have Waluigi Stadium. And when these tracks were first revealed, I did not think I would have Waluigi Stadium this low, as it had been one of my favorites to play back on Mario Kart Double Dash and Mario Kart Wii. That being said, it's still a super fun time doing tricks off of dirt hills through giant rings of fireballs, as well as tricks off of the sides of the course in certain sections that can even land you onto a shortcut that's propelled in the air, which I think is a pretty neat addition compared to what there was on Double Dash and Mario Kart Wii. Even with that cool addition, I just felt like this didn't live up to the previous iterations. Maybe it's just how the course is with the Mario Kart 8 physics, or the fact that the giant piranha plants coming out of the pipes are almost more of an aesthetic now as opposed to an obstacle, but something just felt like it was missing. Despite that though, this is still one of my favorite tracks from this wave, as well as doing a great job of fueling that nostalgia I have for this track. Moving on to number 3, we have the final Mario Kart Tour track of this wave in Singapore Speedway. And I've gotta say, this is probably my favorite Mario Kart Tour track to be released in this DLC yet. You start the track off being blasted out of a cannon up onto a hotel resort rooftop where Goombas are just chilling in the pool wearing life preservers, which is just frickin' adorable. But before you know it, you'll be descending down from the rooftop pool through rings and into the second lap that'll have you drifting through a bazaar and eventually flying over a water fountain show. It all culminates in a final lap that'll have you trying to stay on the correct side of a conveyor belt until you finally fly off of the building and through more rings until you finish up your time racing through Singapore Speedway. Mix all that with a serious bop of a song that accompanies this track, and you have a good time worthy for me of being in the top 3. Now at the runner-up position at number 2, we have DK Summit, which was one of my favorite tracks back on Mario Kart Wii. DK Summit has always felt like it has lived in the shadow of DK Mountain, being that DK Mountain came first and is a pretty iconic Mario Kart track. And while they do have plenty of similarities, I've almost always had a preference for DK Summit myself, and so it's awesome to see it come to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. For one, I'm always a sucker for a snow aesthetic in a game, not to mention the catchy as heck tune that plays while navigating this banger of a track. You start off getting blasted out of a cannon to the top of the mountain, and from there you'll be descending down a snowy slope, doing tricks off of snow hills, ramps, and even the sides of the track while trying to pick up as much speed as you can, while also trying to avoid the clumps of snow that'll slow you down, as well as avoid falling into the pits along the slope of this mountain. It all ends with making your way through a snowy half-pipe section, with you needing to avoid getting bonked by the Shy Guys on their snowboards doing tricks of their own. And even though I find this track awesome, there's only one track that I had just a little more fun with. And at the top spot, we have Yoshis Island, which is yet another brand new course we're getting in this DLC. And all I can really say is, wow, I was blown away by this track. Maybe I'm just caught up in the fan service and nostalgia, but I don't think it'd be possible to make a Mario Kart track about the original Yoshi's Island game any better than this. The aesthetic of the course fits that Yoshi's Island style perfectly, and you have the various unique characters showing up like Poochie, as well as Huffin' Puffins waddling around, and even Shy Guys on stilts. You even have the coins being replaced with coins that have Yoshi's face on them, and when you pick them up, the sound effect is the same sound as when you would get the coins in the original Yoshi's Island. And I couldn't help but smile over the little details like that that really made this track stand out to me. Of course, driving on this course is a ton of fun as well. It'll have you drifting around hills, underwater, through a crystal cave until you fly your way up to the clouds. And while descending from said clouds, you'll have a chance to hit a question mark cloud, which if you do, will set off a shortcut where a red bridge will appear and take you to a ring of flowers, just like at the end of a level in the original Yoshi's Island. Oh, and of course, we can't forget the Gargantua Blarg hanging out in the background of this track, which is just yet another detail that I loved about this track. All this combined with all the new renditions of the Yoshi's Island music, and you have a track that has definitely stolen my heart. But those are just my rankings of these tracks. Comment down below on how you'd rank them. Also, let me know which characters you hope show up in Waves 5 and 6 of the DLC. Be sure to give this video a like, because one like equals one time I will do the DK rap to try and manifest Funky Kong into Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and be sure to subscribe for more videos in the future. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.